we should be live. It's been not one, not two, but possibly 3 weeks. I don't know. It's been a couple of weeks since we've all been here together at the start at the same time. But
On the
welcome
correct
back.
day.
Yeah, on the right day. Yeah, Christmas, a new year. Right now, there's a snowstorm. So if any of this shuts down, internet's gone. All right. Doubt it happens, but just warning you. But welcome back to the To Be Fair Fantasy Football Podcast. And we'll get into intros right after this video. What? Welcome back. As you can see, I've already forgot if you saw our Discords in the first 30 seconds. Just go ahead and join. I'll kick you out, but you can try. It's all love. It's all love. As always, I am one of your hosts, Johnny. To my left is Chris, and beneath me is Nick. He's so dedicated to being in that spot, he left the Discord to get back in that spot before we started. So he's a creature of habit. But it is the first show of 2025.
Happy New Year!
We did it. We made it through a majority of a football season because we started a little late.
Yeah, I think our first one was like week 4 or 5. So
something like that. And we'll get to that in a minute. We're at 48 subs on YouTube. 48.
Thank that.
Thank
you, everybody.
Thank you. For those of you doing math at home, Nick, how many shy of 50 is 48?
2.
All right. First goal, let's just get us to 50.
I really thought you were the middle one first.
Get us to 50. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your old grandma. She'll love us 99% of the time. And then, we want to try to double that. This is the year of growth. This is the year of commitment. We're really going to start pumping out content.
Whoa.
Hopefully. Yeah.
That's the 1% your grandma will like.
Yeah, we'll get on the schedule here. Like I said, it's hard to stay consistent during the holidays. We are all full-time employees somewhere else, so cut us some slack. But we'll get on it.
For now,
thank you.
Get famous, and we will do this real.
Give us money, and then we'll stop.
Yeah.
And then we can.
Yeah, that's how you get them. Ask for money.
That's right. Hey, that's all these people that are getting money on Patreon. They ask for money every single time they do a podcast. All right. Every time. All right. So give me money and then we'll stop and it'll be okay. Then we can make the content, whatever content you want. All right.
That's getting dangerously close to prostitution.
Tub fantasy football stream according to Nick's Twitch.
Yeah. If you give me the 500 on Twitch, I'm doing a hot tub stream.
So there you have it.
Where's the hot tub coming from?
We're going to figure it out, ladies and gentlemen.
Adriana's parents has a hot tub.
We're going to Adriana's parents.
They've got a hot
tub. An hour from here.
Worth it.
I get 500, yeah.
Yeah, we'll make the trip. We'll make the trip. But yes, once we start pumping out this content, please interact with the content. Leave comments. Let us know what you would like to see. Show some love. Share it. Repost. Sub. Like. All the good things. And we will keep doing this because we love it. All right. Moving on to that little thing I said we'd talk about later. We didn't get the first couple weeks of the season. We didn't get the last couple weeks of the season because
we're on track.
Learning curve.
Yeah, first time doing this, the holidays. We got a little bit. I was at the zoo last week. Completely forgot about the podcast.
Yeah, we definitely had a couple times where we got to the day of and we were like, oops.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so that's on us.
Yeah.
We'll make adjustments moving forward.
I was with the spirit of Harambe, and I was, just that's all I could think about. But we will make it work. That being said, we have updates. The finals. Now, like I said, we've missed games. Counting is very hard for us. So
yeah, not a strong suit.
But we'll take what we get here. We somehow ended up with a 2-way tie for first place between Nick and Chris. They both finished 111 and 53. Now, that's fantastic. Considering Zach Taylor's barely 500 with Joe Burrow, and we're going 111 and 53. Scrubs on
We're
the street.
we're every
Goated.
every 3 games we're 2 for 1 basically.
Goated.
Interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. That's a pretty good odds.
Yeah.
What's crazy? And it doesn't. I'm not like rubbing it in. Nick was like pretty good ahead the last time we did
He
this,
blew it.
and you had a tough 1 week. But
Yep.
is what
I
it is.
finished
Haters
second.
gonna hate.
I finished second out of 3 people. So eat that. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I went I went 164.
finished with the worst record. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was not great.
Don't
164.
look at my drink. You can't see what it is.
It was the 1 week. The 1 week that I went negative. Could not rebound from that. Couldn't do it.
No, it was a pretty horrific negative week too. It wasn't
Yeah,
it was
4 and
1 under.
9
Yeah.
or something ridiculous. So it is what it is. Today we will be bringing you another special episode. We're gonna be talking about the playoff bracket, how we feel about it, how it makes us feel inside, deep inside, the hatred it brings to the top.
Yeah.
Let me tell you,
This is gonna be an open therapy session basically.
There's a lot of hatred brewing.
Fair warning to anybody that is gonna watch this. From now till the beginning of next season,
Hate.
majority of the conversations I guarantee we have inevitably spiral to the Bengals. It doesn't matter what team we go to. It doesn't matter what player we're focusing on. It will circle back, and we will land there for a long time.
We'll try to stay focused. No promises, just because they did what they could at the end. But
Joe Burrow put on as much armor and went into battle with as much ammo as he could, and that poor man.
He put the mustard on the dog and slid it down his throat, and we still just couldn't finish the picnic.
That dude might have finished the season another 2 inches shorter after they buried his head in like an ostrich into the dirt on that last tackle.
Yeah,
you're talking about something else.
No.
Catching Nick off guard here. We're catching him off guard. But yeah, we're talking about the playoff bracket, our predictions, and we're gonna give out our top fantasy performers for those predictions. So we'll circle back around to that next week or after each game, obviously, see how we're doing. But we'll get into it first. NFC, which I am now solely an NFC fan. Screw you, AFC. You're dead to me.
You don't have. Okay, wait. Well, we'll get into it. But you have to have a team at least you want to go to the Super Bowl.
I'm not
on
positive.
that side.
I'm not positive there is one. We'll see, but I don't know if there is one. I know there's teams I really don't want there. But,
Yeah, I mean that's obvious.
We're starting off with Vikings versus the Rams. Chris, who do you think is going to win this matchup?
Taking the Vikings. I think they bounce back. They just played the Lions, who obviously very good, probably the best team in football in my opinion. Not a great outing. Sam Darnold kind of looked lost in the red zone, but it's the Lions, so I'm going to chalk that one up there, and I think the Vikings get it done.
Nick, who are you taking?
I agree. I think the Vikings bounce back. I think Justin Jefferson's gonna eat. He's gonna have 10 catches. Not gonna be close. I think the Vikings are gonna go deep in the playoffs.
And like I have said all year, I will finally return to my theme that the Vikings are frauds. And I will be taking a first-round exit from the Minnesota Vikings. And I will be sticking with the Rams, my top fantasy performer. I'm going to give it to Puki Nakui. One, because he screwed me all year long. Every time I needed Cooper Kupp to do something, he did not. And every time I needed Puka Nakua to settle down, Matt Stafford couldn't stop licking his chops. I wrote some stuff down just to give you a little insight here. Puka Nakua, I think he's going to get around 28 points. Last time Minnesota gave up 28 points to the Rams, Kupp had 16 fantasy points and Nakua had 18. So one of these two wide receivers is probably going to go off. I'm just taking the chance that it's the one that typically does. So that is my top performer between that game. I know Nick mentioned Jefferson.
Yeah, I forgot to mention mine.
Yeah, and then Chris, who do you think's
I
taking
this
the game?
is one of those moments. You know when you look at a game or your fantasy lineup and you're just like, this is the wrong player to play logically, but I just got that feeling. This is solely that. I don't know why, but I just think Aaron Jones for the Vikings might be one of those. He would have this in Green Bay every once in a while when he played there, where he'd play and then just magically it'd be this like 4 touchdown game and he would just like go crazy. I just think it might be one of those weeks where he just like for some reason gets a bunch of dump offs. Then he breaks some weird like 40-yard run, and then you're staring on the barrel of like he's already got 3 touchdowns, and I don't know. We'll see.
We will see. I don't hate either of these teams. I think I like the Vikings a little more because the Rams beat us in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So, but
Yeah,
I don't hate either one of the teams.
fair.
Moving on to Washington Commanders football team, Redskins at the Bucks. Chris, who do you got?
Taking Washington. Um, they've looked good. You have Jaden Daniels balling right now. Scary Terry is as scary as ever. That dude is
He's finally
just
getting
goes
some
to
help.
show. Yeah, I'll say just goes to show when you think a player is good with bad quarterbacks, and then they get a good quarterback, it's gonna work. So that is my breakout player. Not breakout, but elite player for the game. I don't see a world where Scary Terry doesn't have like several touchdowns and like 150 yards or something crazy.
Cool. Nick, how do you feel about this game? Who you taking?
I'm taking the Bucks. I think the Bucks are now the Bengals of the playoffs. I think they have the ability to put up 50 points a game and get blown out by 50 points. It's very offensive heavy, but I think player who's going to score go crazy is Bucky Irving. I think Washington, their run defense hasn't been great all year, and Bucky Irving has just been getting better, it seems like. So I'm going to say Bucky Irving.
I am also taking the Bucks. Um, my top performer is going to Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to land around the 33, 35 mark. Washington gave up 37 points to the Buccaneers last time they played. Um, Baker had 4 touchdowns. So,
Yeah, but that I don't disagree. But that was
he
a
had
really
Chris
early in the year.
he had Chris Godwin,
Yeah, and
but
it was
Bucky
also
Irving
like
was irrelevant.
yeah. I was gonna say the other piece of that puzzle is Washington's defense. The first like 5, maybe 6 weeks of the season was pretty horrendous, and they got way
I
better. So
this I don't dislike Washington, but the Buccaneers are now that the Bengals
mobile
are gone.
quarterback, you'll
Now,
root against it every
yeah,
time.
now that the Bengals are gone, Buccaneers are team number one. I am rooting for to go all the way to the
Really,
Super Bowl. Yep,
over the Lions.
over the Lions. Yes, I'm now
Interesting.
taking.
Interesting.
And here 2 reasons. One,
Geriatric man.
I like Mike Evans. Obviously, I like Baker Mayfield now that he's not in the division. And 3, the most petty of the reasons. I do not want the Lions to end their drought before the Bengals do.
Oh,
So I will stay with the Bucks.
I was surprised you both picked the Bucks. Honestly, I thought
I think Baker
in my
Mayfield.
mind that first game we went through, Minnesota Rams, like okay, I could see a scenario where either team wins. I don't really see a scenario the Bucks winning here.
That's crazy.
I'm defaulting to Jaden Daniels not having any experience and Baker Mayfield finally getting his dues somewhere after being snubbed for an eternity. So I think it's more of a hope. I think they're very possible. I think it really just comes down to like what Nick said. Are the Bucks gonna give up 50? Like I don't. They could. If they do,
Yeah,
then
they
they're
might. I
screwed.
don't know.
So I mean, they gave up 40 to Kirk Cousins.
Panthers last week.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch. Moving on to the last, the last matchup of the NFC bracket, we have Packers at Eagles. Chris, how you feeling about this one?
This is another one that I don't really think is going to be close. Eagles have turned it on. Their defense was pretty mediocre for most of the season, and then the back half they've really picked it up. Offensively, you can make whatever argument you want about Jalen Hurts and the receiving core being mediocre this season, but I'm just for how good Barkley's been. Like I don't see a world where that's not just the main reason that they've suffered. So I think anything could happen. Jalen Hurts could easily throw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I think this is going to be another Saquon Barkley 150-yard, 2 touchdown crazy game.
And Nick, how you feeling about this one?
I think the
Pretty
Eagles
similar.
take it. Yeah, I think Saquon's gonna eat. I wouldn't be surprised if AJ Brown also ate. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Jair Alexander out?
Yeah.
So
They
they got
also, on the other
nobody.
side of the ball, are now down Christian Watson. Not that he was some big playmaker,
Well,
but
Yeah.
the deep
yeah.
threat factor
And
matters.
didn't Jordan Love get injured last week?
He bonked his elbow.
Yeah.
He's
So
been injured on and off. Yeah.
I don't think. I think all that together, Packers are a good team, but I think it's not gonna. They're not gonna win.
I am taking the Packers, and this is solely a hate pick. Hate, double hate, loathe entirely. I hate the Eagles. I hate Jalen Hurts. I hate Nick Sirianni. I hate everything about that team except for Saquon Barkley. Um, I think everything you guys have said is probably true. I think Saquon probably runs all over them. I think Jordan Love being limited is probably an advantage for the Packers because I think the more you use Josh Jacobs, it's probably better for you than Jordan Love trying to do what Jordan Love is going to do.
Jordan Love is the new Jameis Winston. He's
Yeah.
going to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, but he's going to throw 3 picks while he does it.
I think
So
if they used Kraft, that's his name, right?
Jaden Reed.
Yeah, I think if they use Kraft and Josh Jacobs more and Jordan Love less in the deep attack, then they'll have a higher chance. I wrote down Jacobs went 84 on 16 attempts. He didn't get in the end zone last time, but he's got a touchdown like
Yeah, he is balling right now.
every game in the last like 8 games or something crazy. It's ridiculous. He's just keeps getting in the end zone. So we'll see. I don't think it's a secure pick by any means, but like I said, I just don't like the Eagles. So that one was more with my heart. So we'll take what it is. And then, of course, Detroit has the first round bye. Good for Detroit. Yeah.
Crazy that. Did you see what Amon Ross said about the seeding and what should be done?
Mm-mm.
So it's crazy. Like what he was saying basically is that like before this week, you had the Lions and the Vikings both 14-2,
Mm-hmm.
and then both they come week 18, winner takes the division and the 1 seed, and then loser gets bumped to the 5. And so his whole thing was like kind of crazy that like that's how it's done. His argument was you still take division winners and put them in the playoffs because you can't not do that. But you default to record first. So yeah, for seeding. So like theoretically right now it would be like Lions 1, Eagles 2, Vikings 3 because their record's great. And then like even though the Bucks, for instance, won the division, they're like 9-8 or something like that. And like they would be like the last seed. Or as how like it would go theoretically.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I don't think it will happen because
No, it definitely won't.
Roger Goodell is not going to do that.
No,
It's
I
also
agree.
just extremely frustrating. I understand what you're saying because it's extremely frustrating to look at the Bucks and their division, and it's like, congrats.
Every
But
year there's a division like that. NFC East division has been the bad one. The last NFC South, sorry, the last couple of years has been that like ooh not so great. There was a year I remember the NFC West where like I think either the Niners or the Rams or somebody won it. I don't remember what it was, but they had a losing record.
Yeah.
I remember like back in the day, like a losing record and you won a division.
Yeah.
Like it just sucks, and like it sucks too knowing that like forever and always Pittsburgh's gonna be like good. The Ravens are gonna be good.
Yeah, I mean, just look around. I was talking about this with John. I mean, you look around the league. I don't think on paper our division gained Derrick Henry again on paper in a 2-year span. Derrick Henry, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, and there's a receiver, I think.
Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy. And it's like, what division is getting that many skill positions like that quickly? And we like have to of teams that are, I mean, that's what teams that compete are going to do, but it's just like, dude, we got to constantly deal with this crap. Granted, we should be dog walking the Browns every year, and we don't. This is the first year we have, so is what it is. But yeah, I wouldn't hate a reseeding. It won't happen though.
No, it definitely won't happen. But I like the idea. The sucky part would inevitably, if they ever move to that, winning the division and being like, well, I won the division and get nothing for it. I didn't get any home field advantage. I didn't get any like. It's a lose-lose.
It would pay off for the harder divisions because, like, if you have to win the AFC North, you gotta basically get 13 wins, probably 14.
Well, last year you had 3 or 4 teams make the playoffs. This year you almost had 3 or 4 teams make the playoffs again. It's just one of those like.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Alrighty, we are moving on to the AFC. First up, we have Chargers versus the Texans. Chris, how you feeling about this one?
I don't think this will be close. The Texans have looked very bad, in my opinion. The last several times they've played, Chargers have looked very good the last several times they played, and I don't see anybody at all being able to stop that wee little lad running around on the field.
Yeah,
Nick didn't like that joke.
I'll go with you since I'm, on the same page. I think the Chargers are gonna smash the Texans. I think Lad's putting up 25 easily. Houston's been terrible. I saw a stat comparison today between Stroud and Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams is leading Stroud in every stat, which is not good. Because Caleb Williams is a bad quarterback. I think Stroud's a good quarterback. I think he's just like one of the worst sophomore slumps
classic sophomore.
Seen.
Classic slump.
So Chris, we're pretty much on the same page. Nick, obviously, you're not.
I'm taking the Texans. I think there's just gonna be an upset. I think the Chargers should win this game because the Texans have been bad, but I think the Texans pull out a crazy win. I think Nico goes nuclear.
I think you're gonna have to.
He's gonna have to, yeah.
Yeah, because I hate to break it to you, Texans fans. You've got a former Bengal as a running back, and he ain't been clutch in playoff games. He's not bad, but he's never exploded for like a game-saving anything. So sorry. And
Texans by money.
Last week he kind of sucked, didn't he? Was not last week, the week before. Last week he sat.
Getting kind of old is a problem.
Well, isn't Houston's offensive line like atrocious?
It might be too.
He should be used to that in Cincinnati. Oh, speaking of, we'll hit it real quick. Cincinnati fires Lou, fires the O-line coach, fires the linebacking coach. There was one more. I can't.
There's one more.
Defensive line. Beautiful. Wake up elation. I loved it. Every moment of it. Zach Taylor gets on the press conference today. First thing they asked him, they said, when did you consider firing them? He said, at the end of the season. They said, was this your decision or someone else's? He said, it's mine. So, love to see it. He said he didn't take it lightly, obviously, because he's been with them for a while. All of them got to go. Clean house. Now, Chris. If Zach Taylor comes out next year and we start 0-3, 0-4, that's when you can Zach Taylor.
I told this to Nick. I said maybe my rhetoric towards Zach Taylor makes it sound like I despise the guy and thinks he's an absolute bum. I don't think he's a bad head coach. My issue is our team on paper is loaded. Loaded. And what are you shaking your head for?
I'm about to cook you. Go ahead.
Oh. No, my whole issue is that, like, I keep saying it. If you put like Andy Reid, and again, I know that that's like arguably the best coach right now. I'm not gonna like, that's like asking Tom Brady to be the next draft pick and then it hit. Like, I get that that's not how that works, but I'm just saying theoretically, if you put a good, like, high level coach on the Bengals, the controversy that flies through our group text and on Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want to call, about what transpired in a game goes out the window. Nobody's going to question Andy Reid's decision making. No one's going to question, even at this point, people are mad about Mike Tomlin's career right now. Steelers fans are calling for him to get fired. Dude, I'll take Mike Tomlin as a head coach if it's going to get me to that many playoffs with a roster we have. Like, we're good enough to overcome a lot. You just saw it this year. So, point being, we'll see. You're absolutely right. This is going to be one of those. We'll find out. I said it before. If you get rid of Zach, it gets rid of everybody. It's kind of like a clean house altogether, which they've cleaned basically the house as is, other than Zach. So,
Nick, would you like to go first or second?
I just don't understand how we have the MVP, should be the MVP at quarterback, the Triple Crown winner, a running back who had 1,300 all-purpose yards starting basically half of the year.
sure.
A tight end who was 650 yards. T. Higgins, who played, I don't, was he 1,000? Was he a 1,000-yard receiver this year?
He was like 90 short. He was hurt too much.
So almost 1,000-yard receiver being hurt. You look at all of that with a banged up O-line, and tell me that Zach Taylor is not a good head coach. I don't think he's amazing. I'm not saying he's the best coach in the NFL.
I'd say
offensively, he's like, that's the job you want. We have a loaded offense, and statistically, our offense is great.
I would put.
How are you going to have a Triple Crown winner? That's only been happened 5 times in the NFL.
Sure. Yeah, you're right.
I would put Zach Taylor at the bottom of the top third of coaches. That is my assessment of him.
Let me ask you this, just because it came up. If you, for whatever reason, Mike Brown has been known to be super cheap, right? That's not a secret. He's not going to go spend money. Let's say by the grace of God, somehow he was watching this podcast and he thought, you know what? I really like how you're talking. I like what you're saying. I want you to be the next head coach of the Bengals. Just out of the blue. How well do you think the Bengals team would do?
Not good.
You don't think the skill level of the players you named on offense don't carry you to some degree?
Absolutely not.
No,
dude.
And
Joe Burrow, though the year we went to Super Bowl, he called the entire the last 2 minutes on a drive to score a touchdown in a playoff game.
Yeah,
he was 2 years in.
I think that's different though. I mean, he'll admit that he defaults to Zach. Like, here's the problem with your logic, is that Joe Burrow and our Triple Crown winner love Zach as an offensive coordinator.
Sure. Yeah.
So
no, I get that.
Any guy that can scheme somebody to a Triple Crown is probably.
But my point is, like, again, if you were to take Zach out of the equation, and now you see this play out the way that it did this year with Joe and Jamar, you would look at that on another person's team. Let's say Joe got drafted to a different team, and then Jamar the following year got drafted with him. You would look at that team, no matter who the coach was, and you'd go, that guy should be getting targets, catches. That guy should be getting looked at in the end zone, in the red zone. Like, my point is, I'm not disagreeing that, like, Zach Taylor has done a good at scheming them to get that job, but that's not like rocket science.
Well, yeah, but you can't.
My point is, like,
You can't blame him for doing what's obvious
Yeah.
sometimes.
No. I'm not blaming him. But that's
You're
my point.
discrediting everything. Like, what is the man supposed to do?
You're right. But my point is my issue is you've done what the bare minimum has been for as good of a team as we have had to get to the Super Bowl once, 2 AFC championships. That's basically what like you would expect.
Dude, you're crazy.
I think outside of I think the biggest glaring thing on Zach Taylor's record is the slow starts every year. That is something everybody in the world can look
Sure.
at and say that's bad. The problem with this year specifically is, and this isn't me being a crazy person because I know I can be crazy. There's about 3 games that the NFL legitimately have robbed from the Bengals this year. Okay, that puts them at 12 wins. Those 3
Sure.
games, every one of those 3 games, there was probably a text in our group chat about Zach Taylor's clock management. That wouldn't have come up if our kicker would have just made the field goal.
Well, yeah,
Or-
that's a fair point.
If the NFL would have just called a touchdown on the field when they're supposed to, or a pass interference, or a face mask. So
Yeah. But here's
last-
here's the counter argument to that. Well, go ahead.
But the
finish, you
last
finish.
5 weeks, Zach has made those same types of calls, and yes, they're not as good of teams as they were, and they've all panned out. And just because he has good players to make them pan out, we can't hit him with the deficit. Like, we can't penalize him because he's using his good tools for the bad management he's using. He got raked, and I mean raked, over the coals against the Ravens in overtime for a run, miss a field goal. So what did he do against the Broncos? He said, Joe, what would you like to do here? And Joe says, I would like to throw the ball. So he said, I'm going to give the ball to my $255 million quarterback. And what happens? We win the game, and he gets raked for not running in clock management. And it's like, okay, but what do you want from the guy? Like, he straight up says on Hard Knocks, like, Chase Brown, you can't plan for him getting hurt there. That throws the plan out the window. But these are what the people on Twitter are not understanding.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. The injury thing, like, I'm with you. I was frustrated in the moment, and then it was like, you can't account for an injury at that point. Like, just take the points, and I totally get that scenario. The one with Denver, you jump back to the Ravens game, where 54-yard field goal or something, and then we miss it, right? Frustrating looking back, but to your point, okay, maybe it's not the end of the world. McPherson, for whatever reason this year, got the yips and blew chunks. So
yeah, you're looking
that sucks.
at that point. You're looking at a kicker that had one of the highest percentages of made over 50 since he's been in the league.
And it was a hard fall off.
Yeah.
Before he got hurt, there were like 39. There's 32 teams. There were 39 kickers that had attempted kicks, and his accuracy, like, rating was like 35 out of 39. Like, it was bad. But
yeah, it was
whatever.
real bad.
Jumping to the Denver game, my issue with that game is, I'm with you. I'm glad you give the ball to the playmaker. 100% of the time, you should be putting it into the hands of the guy who you trust most. That is 1,000% Joe Burrow. Not any question that that's the case. The issue is that is the chip shot field goal that you settle for, and not the 54 or whatever it was yarder.
He tried,
now, granted,
and they missed.
Yeah. Granted, that's what I'm saying. But I told this to Nick. I can't get mad if we lose that way. If you're at 34 yards or whatever it is, you run, you miss the field goal, and it doinks off the crossbar. I'm gonna go, that's really annoying. But, like, what are you supposed to do? When you run at 55, there's gonna be an element of, like, dude, you couldn't get a little closer. Like, that's my point. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm not saying he's a great coach. It's hard for me to differentiate how much of this is elite level talent on offense, and that's what he does, is offensive play calling. So, like, I'm with you that I can't fault the guy for saying, like, it's bad, other than the 0-3, 0-4 starts or whatever it is. I just can't give him the credit of being this great offensive mind, great head coach, top third, where you look at Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown as a breakout player, Mike Gesicki comes back as a break. You've had like 4 tight ends in a row, minus Irv Smith, that were nothings that come to our offense and are incredible.
So
That being said, go ahead, sorry.
go ahead.
I'll just say all of those tight ends had success prior. It wasn't like we just pulled out of a hat and like they were good in our offense. It was like they were great. Then the team they were on stopped using them, so we went and got them.
Yeah, but like Yoshi is a Princeton wide receiver 3. He has 6 touchdowns on the year. 7 if
Sure.
Gesicki wouldn't have false start. Like those are the things that like. And Chase Brown, that's a draft. He's a draft pick. Like that's someone that our offense has developed. Like,
Oh yeah. No, I get that. But even the Andre Yoshivas one, my issue is that like when you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like there's only so much scheming you can do to not have a one-on-one coverage with somebody. And like you could say whatever level Andre Yoshivas being a Princeton guy, like he's playing in the NFL. Like those guys are good.
sure,
And
but
so,
there's
like,
not a lot of wide receiver 3s that are beating Patrick Surtain on a 1-on-1. Is what I'm saying.
No, yeah. I don't. All I'm saying though is that like it's just one of the like the problem is like Surtain shadowed Jamar that entire game. Dude's gassed. So like that's my point. Is like there's too many question marks for me to be able to look at this and go definitively like yeah, Zach Taylor's good, or on the flip side, I can't definitively say like oh he's a problem and has to go. My issue is just that like I don't know.
You're saying our talent is the reason why Zach Taylor looks as good as he looks.
Yes.
So then how come a team like Atlanta, who has a lot of talent, sucks? You had
Because-
Kirk Cousins, who was an MVP last year. You have Bijan Robinson, who is a stud running back. You have Kyle Pitts, who should be a god, but they don't use him right. You have Drake London, who's great. You have a top 5 offensive line. So how come that's...
I would like to copy and paste that question, but to the Cowboys. The Cowboys were in a similar situation we were, and they could have rallied and ended 9-8, but they crapped the bed.
This year you mean with the Cowboys?
Yeah.
Well, they have a backup quarterback. Not that Cooper Rush is bad. CeeDee Lamb was playing.
We
hurt all
finished
year
9-8
also.
with Jake Browning last year.
Yeah. No. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying like I don't disagree. The Cowboys one in my head is a little different because they had a significant amount of injuries. CeeDee Lamb legitimately played hurt for the last like 5 games of the year. Micah Parsons and that defense wasn't healthy playing together till legitimately the last 6 games of the year. So like that's a little different. To Nick's point with the Falcons. Okay, you're absolutely right. Offense theoretically on paper should be stacked. The problem is Kirk Cousins is not Joe Burrow. Not as good. I'm not saying he's not an MVP caliber. But this year he got benched. Dude had a stint where he played 4 games, threw 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions.
Right. My point is, last year he was legitimately in MVP talks.
Right, with
before he
Justin
got
Jefferson.
smoked.
Yeah, and it's hard. Yeah.
With Justin Jefferson. My point is if you put I'm not saying coaching doesn't matter because it does. You can make the argument and look at Atlanta and go, dude's making it complicated. Maybe he's making it hard to read. I don't know. I don't have that level of inside information to be able to pinpoint what's going on. My point though is Kirk Cousins doesn't have to throw a ball. Like that's not. He could throw it out of bounds. Joe Burrow like never does that. He'll just take a sack. He said it before. He'll just extend plays until somebody gets open or he gets tackled. Like that's the extent you're getting with Burrow. So like my point with Kirk Cousins is that like he doesn't do that. He's going to drop back. He's going to make his first read if it's not there, second read not there, third read. Now you're pushing the time clock of the pocket collapsing, and he's going to throw it. That's what he does, and it just hasn't.
But you're not even like arguing against my point. My point is that they're in a similar situation where their offense should be stacked and be able to theoretically carry their bad coach. Like I get Kirk Cousins is not, Joe Burrow, but Kirk Cousins going into this year was probably a top 10 quarterback, top 8.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They gave him $160 million.
Yeah, it was crazy. They gave him a bunch of money.
you can't sit there and say Zach Taylor's getting carried by an offense, and then Atlanta is a similar looking offense stacked. They're stacked up,
This
and then they terrible, and you say it's not the same.
this goes in the same concept that Johnny mentioned earlier, where it's when you give the players who you trust the most the ball, good things happen. In our case, Joe Burrow is the guy you trust the most. You give him the ball. I don't necessarily think that it's the wisest choice to throw 3 times in a game where you are barely winning, can kick a field goal, run the clock out, but it works because Joe Burrow's awesome and he's the guy you trust. It's fine. That being said, Kirk Cousins, one, is not that guy. He's great. I love Kirk Cousins. Don't get me wrong. Secondly, there is an element to your point that coaching matters. If the Bengals coaching staff decided to not let Joe Burrow throw the ball 45 times a game, we wouldn't have a triple crown. Joe Burrow wouldn't be leading in all of his stats. I'm not saying that doesn't matter. What I'm saying is in Atlanta, they're like 50-50 on like running and passing. And so the problem is it's hard to overcome if Bijan isn't getting a bunch. You saw it a couple of years ago. They're all Arthur Smith was the head coach last year there. He ran the ball more than anybody in football. The problem was you drafted Bijan and then backed him. Tyler Algier had more carries. Doesn't make sense.
But isn't that just more credit to Zach Taylor that he
Yeah.
recognizes what he needs to do with that
Sure.
personnel?
And that's my point. Like that's my argument in all of this is saying like I don't know what the line is because if I'm the head coach of the Bengals, if you put me as the head coach and I had any sort of coaching knowledge, I would just say Joe Burrow, have at it. Throw the ball 60 times for all I care because you're that good. And inevitably we're going to put up 45 points a game. Joe's probably going to have a bunch of sacks. He's probably going to have a couple interceptions, but we're going to put up 1,000,000 points. Points side, you have coaches that don't do that, and then we look at the team and go, it's not really working.
Let's do a little exercise here to figure out the line right away. All right. AFC North, Chris. Obviously, I think we're probably all taking Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin over Zach Taylor. Is that?
Yeah.
Sure.
If you're the Browns and there's a job opening, are you going to get Zach Taylor over Stefanski?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go over to the East. If you're Sean McDermott, do you go get Zach Taylor?
Wait.
No.
What's that for again? I don't remember.
Bills.
No.
If you are whoever the heck is coaching for the Jets right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a vacant coaching job. They fired Saul. I don't even think it's anybody right now.
McDaniels.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
I'm telling you right now, this is how I know that he's a good coach, because if you put Zach Taylor on a team with Tua, Devon Achane, and Waddle and Tyreek, you might get a triple crown out of Tyreek. Like, he's gonna throw him the ball 100 times. That's where think about the year that Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and getting a triple crown out of Tyreek Hill, and
sure.
That
Travis Kelce was there also.
Yeah, true, but it's like,
yeah, but T. Higgins is at the Bengals.
Yeah,
also.
He missed like 6 games this year.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we just went down the line of Chase Brown has 10 touchdowns, Yoshi has 6.
Yeah.
Like he's
No, I
throwing it all
totally
over.
get it. I totally get it. It helps too this year. This is the first year I think Jamar's been healthy the full season also. I think most of the season he's played, he's been hurt.
Realistically, off the top of my head, we're only taking.
Yes, he has.
When?
Who?
Dude, he's missed like 2 or 3 games each year, Jamar.
Not this year, but I think.
Yeah, this year he's healthy, but every other year he's played, he's missed like 2 or 3. Not like a lot, but like small stuff.
I don't remember
There were
last year,
several-
but the year before
There were
missed a
several
couple.
years in a row that like he would play and then T. Higgins would miss, and then T. Higgins would come back and then Jamar would miss.
Been like
It's
4 years. 3
it's been-
years.
Yes,
Yeah,
and he has at
I
least
think
2 that he
2
didn't play
of
the
his
full season.
seasons. Yeah, 2 of the 4 seasons he's not played a whole year, I think. But I think realistically in the NFL, we're only taking Tomlin.
I'm not taking Tomlin.
McDermott. Both the Harbaughs probably.
Yeah, the one in the Chargers is tough because it's year 1 again. I know he's been there before, but
I'm already out of coaches, and
I
like
don't remember all the teams.
I'm not even joking. Like, there's not enough offensive performances that like you could throw. Oh, Andy Reid. I'm taking Andy Reid.
Yeah,
Like,
Andy Reid's an easy one.
but like
The
even
hard here's my point. I guess like that like middling tier of all the guys that we would say like are let's just say remotely close in level to Zach Taylor. You're talking about the guy from Minnesota. I'm just gonna lump people in.
McVay.
McVay, LaFleur from Green Bay.
Yeah.
Um, there's probably more people in that. Oh, Dan
Dan
Campbell.
Campbell.
Yeah, Dan Campbell. That's an easy one.
Okay.
All of those guys are perfect examples of like if you would take those guys out of their situation and then you put them on the Bengals. My point is, I think they're a better coach. Is what I'm getting at. I think we would look at them and go, like, if you took McVay on and you put him on the Bengals, there wouldn't have been the fall off where people were like, I'm over it. Like people would be like, dude, McVay is going to go in the Hall of Fame and he's been coaching for 6 years. If you put LaFleur from the Green Bay Packers on the Bengals, you're going to go, this guy might be the next great coach of all time. That's all I'm getting at.
Look at the Texans.
Sure.
How are they not a great team? Look at their star power. Arguably better
Pre-Stephon.
star power than Atlanta. Same argument.
Stroud sucks. That's the counter argument. He had a major slump.
But my point is how much of that is Stroud versus how much of that is Stroud's coach.
That's the whole argument I'm trying to get at. Is I can't differentiate. I don't know how good our offense is without Zach Taylor. And that's all I'm saying.
I think the easier way is to put a.
The problem is
you severely underestimate the job of coach. I think if you put a bad
probably
coach,
I'm sure I do.
If you put a bad coach on the Bengals, we will be bad. They will not be
good. The problem is you can't have it both ways. If there's a bad game and Burrow plays bad and like week 1 against the Patriots, it's Zach Taylor's fault. But then when Joe Burrow plays good, it's not Zach Taylor's fault. It's Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow. How can you have it both ways when week 1 Joe Burrow looked like butt? Week 2 he looked like butt. Week 3 he looked okay,
week 18,
and then
he looked like butt. Let's be honest.
Like you're just gonna you can't have it both ways. It just seems like you're just a Zach Taylor hater and doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm not. I never once said it was bad. My whole argument, I told you, it's based on a what if. This whole argument that I'm making can't be proven, except under the circumstance that the Bengals move on, they hire somebody else, and then very quickly you're going to look at this and go, this guy's the same level, so clearly nothing changed. Or you're going to go the opposite way and you're going to go, wow, we made a big mistake in letting Zach Taylor go.
I think the closest thing you're ever going to get to that is the Patriots and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady breaking up, and that's a very far stretch because Zach Taylor's not Bill Belichick, or he might be because Bill Belichick might not be that great of a coach. We don't know.
But that's like the perfect counter argument to what you keep saying. Like you keep throwing all these players out. Like Belichick was the example that like you thought he was awesome, and then Brady left, and then they were horrible. Okay. Now, granted, Tom Brady's awesome. I get he's like the greatest of all time.
And look at the team he was left with. I don't care what coach. The team he was left with was terrible.
You could put Andy Reid in New England. They ain't getting 6 wins.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I'm not trying to like make that the argument that I'm willing to die on. I'm just saying like that's the argument. Like at any point, if they moved on, that would be like the clear indicator. But I will never get that until that happens. And if they keep going like this with the way Mike Brown is,
yeah, he's getting an.
I'll never be fired.
He's on until 2026. I guarantee he gets an extension unless he starts 0-4.
I think if you go 0-4 or even, frankly, in my opinion, if you don't make the playoffs again,
probably
unless the roster is either riddled with injuries or you just do a very poor free agency.
Yeah,
like
we
signing
will
period or whatever.
See. Let us know if you are a Zach Taylor hater, a neutral, or a Zach Taylor apologist, like Nick and I. So See, look, we got derailed. We will go through AFC quickly. We already went through Chargers or Texans, right?
Yeah, we gotta get to that one.
Look, we only got 2 left. Steelers at Ravens. This is the first one we've all picked the same team, so I'll save us a little bit of time here. We're all taking the Ravens. The Steelers looked
They look like
Fraud.
bones.
terrible against a
Fraud.
Bengals defense that has been playing 10% better
Swiss
than they have
cheese.
all year.
Yeah.
And we all took Lamar. So there you have it. We're on the same page
Yeah.
for that one. The last matchup we have Broncos at Buffalo, and what do you know? We're all taking Buffalo.
I will say I was really tempted to say Denver.
Shut up.
I'm not going
Here's
to
why.
say Denver.
Here's why. This is like a. Did you guys watch Tony Romo talk about this matchup?
No.
I
He
had to
said
turn
this,
the game off.
and he's probably right. I only saw it because it was like I was scrolling through social media. I didn't finish it. He was saying like basically this is kind of like the worst case scenario for both teams. If you're Denver, like going into Buffalo, like Buffalo's probably the scariest team in the AFC right now. Like if you realistically, like the Chiefs have the 1 seed, they have the bye, but like none of us think that's going to continue. So Buffalo probably is the scariest team. So if you're Denver, you have a rookie quarterback, you're going into Buffalo, kind of scary. That's kind of worst case scenario for who you play. On the flip side, the number 1 defense at sacks, at containing quarterback, is Denver Broncos. So this is kind of like worst case scenario for the Bills because Josh Allen is known for being able to just extend plays, do this crazy stuff, and this is like the exact defense to counteract that. So like, be interesting. I was tempted, but I think the Bills are too good, I don't trust Bo Nix and rookie quarterback.
Yeah, no, I think despite all that, I don't think Denver is going to be able to get their run game going. And all of the good games they have their run game going to some extent, so they can start doing those bootleg.
Usually, Bo Nix is a big part of that too.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I'm taking Josh Allen as the player of the matchup. I think he's going to get at least a rushing touchdown, and it will be from a yard out, maybe more. He's Jalen Hurts 2.0 at this point. He just gets down there and takes all the running backs' touchdowns. So I don't think that game's going to be particularly close. I think the Bills are going to smash the Broncos. And
Yeah. Josh Allen's going to make Denver's defense look stupid.
I do think James Cook has a good game.
We should hope.
I agree.
And lastly, that leaves the Chiefs for the first round bye, which I will leave on. The Chiefs, if you're a Chiefs fan, you should. Where's my camera? If you're a Chiefs fan, you should be filled with shame. You cannot tell me.
Don't watch this podcast.
Yeah,
we don't want you here.
You mother lovers went out there and sold out. All right. I didn't think they were going to win, but let me just lay down.
That might have been the worst performance I've ever seen in my entire
Let me just
life.
lay down a few facts for y'all. Nick, I shared these with you, but for the viewers, Butker. Now I know he's dealing with an injury. He's never missed a kick in that stadium, and he misses a 50-yarder, which for Butker ain't that hard, and in Denver ain't that hard. Thin air. Secondly, you want to know how long it's been since the Chiefs have been shut out in the first half of a football game? 61 games. 61 games. The Chiefs have had the first seed within the last 61 games, and they have had starters, and they still have not been shut out. All right. And you're telling me that they sign a linebacker 3 days before the game, and he's their starting linebacker? Like, and Denver's just eating the middle of the field. Like, there's so many things. Like, I don't think they were ever going to win, but could you at least pretend like you were going to go out there and play the game of football to give anybody something to watch? It was so bad that the first time Denver has clinched a playoff spot in 10 years, and CBS cut away from the game. They didn't even see the end of the game. They cut away from it. It's like all these Denver fans or Kansas City fans are like, we're saying the Bengals or the Chiefs are afraid of the Bengals. They don't want to see us in the playoffs. It's like, dude, I think this got some validity because you know your team sucks this year. And I know they say this every year, but this is the most I actually believe it. I think the Chiefs are going to get smashed in their first playoff game. And I am going to be celebrating like it's a Bengals win because that's how petty I am. I think their team sucks. I think this
Yeah,
is the
with the
worst.
Chiefs.
This is the worst Patrick Mahomes has looked as a quarterback, and the worst
Dude,
Travis
can we
Kelce
talk
has
about
looked.
can we talk about how people seem to believe that just because of the record, Patrick Mahomes deserves the Pro Bowl? What are we doing?
The Pro Bowl.
My
the
my
Pro-
timeline on social media is riddled with just people being like, "This is unacceptable." Like, dude, he is
the
buns.
Pro
He is
Bowl
horrible.
is
He has not played good.
useless now. MVP, I could argue that because Joe Burrow was on a team that was that bad and we finished 9-8, that it should be to his credit, not to his discredit. Because guess what? If you put any other quarterback on the team besides Joe Burrow, they're gonna be 4 and whatever. It's not gonna. It's not gonna happen. So MVP is a joke. Guess who passed Joe Burrow for comeback player of the year odds? Sam Darnold is now leading comeback player of the year odds. So this is the state of the NFL right now. It gets me very angry, if you can't tell. But I will begrudgingly watch these playoff games somewhat. The ones I can tolerate. I will not watch the Chiefs play. I won't do
Unless
it.
they're getting obliterated.
Yeah, I'll turn if I pull up my score and the Chiefs are just getting pounded, I'll pull it up to celebrate, but other than that, I'm not watching them. But we will be back next week with another episode, a new topic, updates on our current selections, whatever games may or may not have been played. I don't know when's wild card round this weekend.
Yeah, they start this weekend. First games are on Saturday. You get a couple, so
Perfecto. So we'll be back with at least a couple of games in the pocket. That being said, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Please come back next week. Like I said at the beginning, share. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your 95-year-old grandma, tell your 85-year-old grandpa. We
that's
love
right.
you.
That's what we can get.
Thank you, and have a great night.